Hello and welcome to the Buckets and Tea NBA show. I'm your host, Cathryn Naiker. Thanks so much for tuning in to this week's episode. Joining me, you know him from the Confederacy of Dunks. I know him as my friend first and the Pickup WNBA podcast co-host the second. It's Freddie Rivas. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for being here with me. I could not think of anyone better after such a brutal Raptors loss. We're going to get into all of that, react to some of the playing games that have happened so far. We are recording this Thursday night. So we don't have all the playing games done. And then we'll get into some playoff predictions here. So typically I do the NBA first and the Raptors second. But after everything that happened last night, and it is the end of our season, I just feel like we got to get this out of the way. So the Raptors lost to the Chicago Bulls last night in pretty, I want to say, like, iconic, in a very iconic way. Like, we were up by 19. We blew this lead. We had a historic low free throw shooting night. And then we have DeRozan's daughter screaming at every single free throw. And then the whole team pretending that it didn't affect them. Well, maybe not everyone pretending, but most pretending that it didn't fully affect them. Really a wild night. I felt pretty stunned by the end of it. I thought we really had this game. And suddenly it was just like, in the third, fourth quarter, we literally forgot how to pass the ball, in addition to not hitting these free throws. And it was, it was disappointing. Freddie, how are you feeling as it was unfolding?
It's like a part of me wants to be like, oh my God, it was like this like horrific experience. It was like a slow horror show. But
Go on. No, I'm kidding. I'm just forcing you into that corner. I'm just kidding.
But I was watching that game, with a bunch of people, and even when our lead was 19 or whatever the highest lead was, I said out loud, I wasn't the only one that was sort of like, this is like absolutely not a safe lead. The Raptors can easily go 5, 6, 7 minutes in a row without like hitting a bucket. And yeah, sure enough, it happened. And I think this is like, I had lunch with my mom today. Shout out King Taco, great tacos. But
I thought you were going to say shout out to your mom.
Shout out to my mom. I'm really shouting out because she was just like saying how this was so perfect for the Raptors this season. Like this loss.
It was the perfect heartbreaking ending to a brutal season.
And it epitomized what the Raptors were this year. Lots of promise, lots of talent. The starting lineup kind of overwhelming the other opponent at times. Lots of just lots of good stuff. I think all 5 of the starters, showed up in ways. Obviously, they, there's things that they did poorly. The bench didn't do much. The bench also wasn't trusted. And yeah, they found a kind of a new spectacular way to lose. And this Raptors team, there's that saying where, good teams find a way to win. And this Raptors team is not a good team, and it routinely found ways to lose.
Yeah.
Obviously we're eulogizing now. I think we're looking at a long summer, probably a fun, wild summer of stuff that's going to happen. But we're here. The Raptors are out of the playoffs, and the season's over, and we'll be looking forward to the draft. Pro-Am games and shit. Rico Hines, who gets re-signed. And yeah, I definitely think the energy is going to be very different coming into next season compared to what it was this year, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I think Fred in his post game talked about the team needing a new identity. And a new identity is a nice soft way of saying change.
Yeah.
So we're going to see change. And I think like I mean, I didn't want to get too ahead of myself there. I mean, first of all, shout out to DeMar DeRozan's daughter.
Yeah, I just saw. I was just showing my partner Caitlin that like the screams, and then I saw this fun graph of like like whatever, like DeRozan MVP 36 screams, and
She got her own highlight reel.
it was like it just.
And the ESPN broadcast was showing the split screen of us hitting a free throw and her, which is like, no one who listens to this podcast also watched The View, but that's why Rosie O'Donnell quit, because they did a split screen with her and Elizabeth Hasselbeck or whatever. And then she was like, I'm out. Split screens are controversial.
Wow.
It's a reference no one here will appreciate, but for the one person who does, one person who does, like, yeah, The View started it.
Wow.
But anyway, yeah, the split screen was controversial only because I'm a Raptors fan. I mean, it's actually super funny and hilarious. And like, I know people were like getting mad at her, but at first I was like, what is that scream? And then hilarious. I was like, I'm actually in love with her.
Listen, sports are supposed to be fun and funny and weird. And I live for that kind of shit. Mm-hmm. Did it suck? Did it affect us? And, to your point earlier, all the Raptors were like, yeah, it didn't like affect us, whatever. Scotty was the only one who was like, yeah, she was screaming so loud. We shot 18 from 36. I'm pretty sure it affected us.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
Also, it affected us in a major way.
Yeah, Scotty was the only one who really admitted it. But also, too, like, they know her.
Yeah.
Like, they know DR. They've seen her grow up. They're like best friends with DeMar. They probably see her in the summer times. I mean, to me, that makes it even more savage, is that like she knows these guys and it's still like going at it, which is so funny.
Yeah. Like, they've watched her grow up and she's like, I'm grown up and I hate you. And I'm exacting revenge on behalf of my father. It's amazing. Like,
and then for her not to travel to Miami and then using like school as an excuse, and you're just like, come on, DeMar, don't make it that obvious that it was personal. Don't make it that obvious.
I also feel like DeMar, whether if we were to have one, like for DeMar was going to be personal. You know what I mean? Like, I think he clearly really cared about this game, and yeah, that's pretty obvious. I also think one thing, the Twitter part of this was so funny because a lot of people that I was seeing, like, first of all, I got like 5 texts being like, "Are you hearing about all this screaming?" So there was like this like a long while. I saw lots of tweets talking about the screaming before people realized it was DeRozan's daughter. So like that already is great. Like that sort of developing storyline. And then, oh shit, I forgot what I was going to say. Something about the Twitter part of it.
And then they didn't realize it was her. And then they did realize it was her.
I lost it.
That's okay.
Yeah. But whatever. It was a good arc. Like I really appreciated that she was like a huge part of this game. Oh, sorry. I know what I was going to say. Got it. I saw a lot of tweets saying that, these players are professional. If they were to play on the road, everyone would be yelling at them. It's like, yeah, they're all used to that. They're all used to being on the road where the whole audience yells at them. What they're not used to is being at home and everyone's quiet, except one person who has really, really good seats. And just shrieking extremely loud.
And it's someone they know. It's
like, imagine like golfing or something, and then you're right about to swing, and like someone blows it, like, jackass style, like they bust out an air horn right before you swing. Like it's that type of level. Like it was, they don't do that to each other in practice. They don't, like, it's not something they've worked out. Like if there's a shrieking person, very close. Anyways, shout out to her. She killed it. Undefeated.
1 for 1. Absolutely. I also think, like, I know this game in a weird, messed up way was a kind of a microcosm of the season, but it was really disappointing to see these players go out like this and like to actually miss all those free throws and like at the end for Siakam to only hit one out of those three.
Painful.
Especially considering the night before we saw Mike Conley hit 3 for 3 in actually a more intense situation. But I mean, it is so brutal. And I wonder to what degree did they just want this to be over? You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure they wanted it in the moment, but then there's also just this part of me that's like, maybe they just really wanted this to be over. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I just felt like they weren't fighting for it in the same way. I could be wrong. People are going to get mad at me in the comments, but I don't know.
I mean, I think so much is made of like, whether it's LeBron or James Harden of, a guy like mailing it in or an athlete sort of like quitting. And
I'm not suggesting they quit.
No, I know. But I mean, I think mental defeat is real. Right. Yeah. And I think we all saw the offense stagnate. How many times, watching that third quarter when Levine started to cook, first it's a couple possessions of Scotty guarding him way too close, which is the game plan, and Levine blowing by him every time. Then it's Fred guarding Levine too close and getting blown by every time. And then Levine started to feel it, and he was like, oh, they're going to guard me at the half court. So as long as I can get downhill, they're kind of in, they're in trouble.
I don't even recall to what degree he was double teamed. Like at one point, do you
I think we're
consider
mostly
like
double teaming DeRozan, but he might have been double teamed a couple times. I'm sure.
But at one point, when you're like, wow, this guy has like 30 points in the second half, like, you know what I mean? Like when you get to a point and you're just like, hey, maybe we should just like double team Zach LaVine because he's actually super hot right now, and let's take that chance.
Yeah, and like, I think a lot of people deserve blame in the game, but I think, I don't want to bury any future topics, but I think I've had issues with Nurse for a long time, and I think that this game is a good example. So the Raptors didn't have one bench player that played more than 20 minutes. And, you heard Jack on the broadcast say earlier on, like, Chicago's playing their bench. Is Chicago's bench amazing? No. But they played them, and they had two players who played over 20 minutes, Pat Williams and Kobe White. And the Raptors didn't play their bench, and in typical Raptors fashion, fourth quarter comes around, and the starters, which had been playing great, were gassed. So they stop moving the ball. The defense is looser, and things break down. And then they totally lose momentum. And I think that's just, it's like, Siakam led the league in minutes again this year. And it's sort of like, it's just not a thing that's sustainable. Like, it's not a thing that works. And it's not a new thing for me to say. And this game, you saw it happen, right?
Yeah, I don't disagree with you at all. And I think we all know Nick Nurse is finished with the Raptors. Like it's all been said. I do think, however, in addition to that, I've been really frustrated with the roster construction of this team this year, and even last year to some degree. First of all, imagine if we had Jakob Poeltl at the beginning of the season, which is a trade we could have done, but didn't do. And I've said it multiple times on this podcast. I've never been a fan of this whole 6'9" vision. I think it's fairly stupid. I don't think it works. And even like in last night's game, it's like they put Vucevic on Fred and he was just stuck, and there was no one able to like set a screen for him or to, open him up. And it's like, well, as long as a team can do that, then how does this make any sense? And as long as you have big guys in the league, you're going to need people who can match up with them size-wise, like a Jakob Poeltl. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. They don't have to be like a prolific scorer or something, but they have to be able to match up defensively on some level. And we just haven't had that. And so that's been really frustrating. And I do think our bench has been frustrating, even though, of course, they haven't had enough minutes. But like somebody like Precious Achua, who I know people really love, has been really inconsistent since he's been a part of this team.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? He's been very inconsistent for 2 full seasons now. So what do you do with that? I love Gary Trent Jr. He was very cold last night, but I don't think that's a reflection of who he is, but it just was unfortunate. I think Boucher is who he is. He has had some growth over the last few years, but I think this is who he is. And, Scotty Barnes talked about in his closing presser about having to work on his conditioning, which is promising to hear him say.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, this is maybe a bigger philosophical topic, but I really feel like the Toronto Raptors organization took too much credit for the development of young players years ago. And now we're like, hey, where is all this development? Like we have such high expectations for player development that I don't think are actually realistic in hindsight. Not to say I never felt that way, but I think like Pascal Siakam and Fred VanVleet are like special guys who really put in the work. And then the Raptors were like, we're an organization that develops players. And it's like, okay, well, who have we developed in the last 4 years? You know what I mean? Like, it's not really an organization thing. I think a lot of it is an individual player thing. And the Raptors organization just took way too much credit for it, led us to believe that this was like a culture thing that they do. And I don't think that that's true.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's really fair. I feel like individual accomplishments, franchises often take credit for, right? And it's sort of the personal work that people put in. I think we've seen that firsthand with this sort of notion that the Raptors are a place that, where they take athletes and turn them into shooters, right? So we've seen people, take steps back in shooting this year, right? Precious, Scotty, Pascal, Fred, OG ended up having a really good, strong 3-point shooting season. But yeah, like I think, it's a major thing. I mean, I guess I'll sort of push back, and as I feel like this is a rough time and people are upset. So there's a bit of like a baby with the bathwater energy as far as it comes to like GM organizational stuff. Like I do think that, as far as like, it's not so much like excuses, but there are reasons for the way that things went down post championship. And I feel like there is a tendency to say that, to sort of like reframe what happened that led to the championship as kind of like a fluke and like this thing that wasn't culture and wasn't development and wasn't, all of these things coming together.
Well, I'm not
slowly.
claiming it was a fluke.
No, I know. I mean, like, I just feel like I've seen a lot of that sort of like online, this idea that it's like, wait a second, like, was it like, and I mean, I'm guilty of it too, as far as like, I've done a lot of reframing of like how much of an accomplishment was Nurse's championship, sort of like following the post championship years. Right. And I think when you're losing, you're searching for answers, and the development thing's really true. I do think that people take away the individual work ethic of a particular guy. And it's fitting that we started this with DeRozan, because I think DeRozan was a major, major building block of this franchise as far as like setting the tone for how to be professional and how to work hard. And that's not there anymore. Fred said that as well. Like this idea, and this is something I'm guilty of as well. This idea of kind of like championship osmosis is not true enough. Like it just hasn't panned out like that. So whether it's Kyle, whether it's Dwayne Casey, whether it's DeRozan, Kawhi, Marc Gasol, whatever, the championship year ultimately it was an accumulation of a time, but ultimately it was 1 year, it was one season. So we're now 3-4 years out, and there's still this feeling of like, well, like Fred, Boucher, OG, Pascal, Nick, they're all champions. It's like, sure, but we're not seeing that. Like, that's not this team. This team is closer to what happened in Chicago.
Yeah, I think like the way I would sum up this season, and I was kind of doing this earlier in the year, but it's the Spider-Man meme. You know what I mean? You've got the players, you've got the coaching staff, and you've got the front office. They're all pointing the finger at each other. And honestly, they all have a point. They all have a valid point. You know what I mean? So it's like it's not like one person is to blame. I feel like it's across the board. And that there needs to be some accountability. Now, there's a lot of nuance into what percentage that accountability actually is,
Yes.
but truly it is across the board. Obviously, coaches are the fall guy for that, rightfully so. They just are.
And star players.
And star players, but you typically...
Like the Fred hate this year has been pretty loud.
Fred hate's been pretty big. I mean, even earlier in the year when we had so much like blow it up talk, like just so much blow it up talk that didn't happen. I did think to myself, like, usually you do fire a coach before you blow up a team. Right?
Yeah,
like, it's so, it's
message. Sorry.
Yeah, it's so rare that you would keep the same coach and blow up a team. I mean, look at the Hawks right now, right? Like they got rid of Nate McMillan. They're trying it with Quinn Snyder, but there's still rumors that they could potentially trade Trae Young.
Right. Or Brooklyn with Jacques Vaughn.
Brooklyn with Jacques Vaughn. Yeah. Like they fired Steve Nash and then tried it with Jacques Vaughn. So usually there is some kind of transition period. Although with this team, I think like they've had a few years now. I mean, if you count the Tampa season, it would be 3 seasons with this squad. Obviously Kyle was part of the Tampa season, but like, I don't know. They kind of shut him down early and it was what it was. So 2 full seasons, if we're being technical with this squad. I mean, I personally love these guys, but I don't think this is working. I mean, do you think, here's a good question for you, Freddie. Do you think Nick Nurse leaves and another coach comes in, not saying who that is. Do you think another coach will actually just like fix everything?
It's a good question. I don't think they'll fix everything, but I think that it's sort of like, it's a really good point as far as like firing the coach before blowing up the team. Because I think a part of that is sort of, Nick Nurse has lost the team, period, end of story. And he's easier to move than any other particular player. So, getting Pirtle helped. Did it fix everything? No. Do we still need shooters? Yes. Did Masai make a bunch of moves that haven't panned out, whether it's Otto or whatever, Aaron Baines or, Malachi or who am I forgetting who ended up trading to the Kings, Terrence Davis. Like, I think there's all these things that have like happened that have been negative. But I do think, you have a new coach and you kind of get more data on your team, right? And also I think for me, an important part of the sort of like the let's make a change narrative should be, where do you think all of the players are now and where are they heading? And, sort of back to your Spider-Man meme thing, which I think is perfect because there is enough blame to go around and it's fair. I really feel like if I were to sum up this year's negative aura, it's chemistry. I think there's not a lot of chemistry between the front office and the coach. There's not a lot of chemistry between the bench and the starters. Early on, I think there was not a lot of chemistry with Fred and Scotty, although I think that really did improve as the year went along. And I think that, and everyone said this, but this team is less than the sum of its parts. But I mean, how do you value those parts? I think you need to know that before making decisions on them. And back to the trade deadline, I bet Masai and Bobby, they're writing a lot of that shit down. What were people offering for Fred? What were people offering for OG? What is their value across the league? And they're going to take that into the summer.
Right. They absolutely are. But also, like, these offers can change,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like,
Yeah,
if
they can get
you,
worse or better.
yeah, like, especially if you sit on them for too long. Like, I remember back in like December, I want to say December, January, when like Zach Lowe was talking about how like OG Anunoby could get a quote Donovan Mitchell like return. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, well, if that's the case, don't you make that trade? Because OG's like not an all-star.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe that wasn't even true
Yeah.
because all the blow it up rumors that circulated us for easily 2 months didn't end up being true either. So, I mean, I don't know.
It's tough to filter through, right? Was like how real was KD for Scotty Barnes? Like
Yeah.
maybe it was not real at all, but it's that's sort of even there was Sharp and a first round for OG before the season started, right? There was this sort of like the OG's role big enough talk before the year began. So yeah, I mean it's gonna be a wild summer. It's gonna be a wild summer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am really like, I know everyone knows that like I'm a huge Nick Nurse fan, but I'm also not blind. So, take that into consideration. I am really looking forward to seeing what this team will look like with a new coach, but there's a part of me that is a little exhausted of this team.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. Look, having Acapurdo for a full season, I think we could be seventh, eighth in the league. Now, granted, who knows what's going to happen to the rest of the Eastern Conference? I mean, let's be real.
Right.
Miami, not happy. Atlanta, not happy. Chicago, maybe they're a little more happy than they should be. You know what I mean? Like,
and Miami and Chicago, old cores as well.
Yeah, like there's a lot of Eastern Conference teams that are in a bit of turmoil right now that could also be considering blowing it up or making other big moves this summer. Like it's certainly not just the Raptors, and that's going to also factor into everything. Yeah. Because the league's been so wide open that I think a lot of teams are going to get frustrated and they're going to choose to bend or break.
And there might be teams that get better too, right? Like, what does Detroit break through next year? Is, Orlando showed a lot, right? Can they sort of make a move? You know what I mean? Like there's been, Fred VanVleet rumors to Orlando.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So yeah, it's going to be wild. And I think the frustration with this core is fair, right? Like, if they've proven anything to the fan base, it's that they're like very, middle of the pack, like if that, so you sort of take what you had last year and that run they made to the 5th seed, through some injured teams, by the way, right? So like, or Chicago got injured at the wrong time. Cleveland got injured at the wrong time. New York was bad, right? And, is New York as good as they were this year going forward? Like, that's another question, right? Like, there's not a lot of certainties. And I mean, I feel like I'm probably jumping around too much here, but I think one of the things you really need to know if you're this franchise is if you're keeping a 30-year-old Pascal, a 30-year-old Fred, how fast do you think Scotty is going to develop? That to me is like one of the bigger questions around. Is Scotty year 3 remarkably better than Scotty year 2? I would hazard a guess that yes, he is. And I think that Scotty year 3 or 4 is going to start to get very, very special. But yeah, do you want him with those guys? I don't know. Do they like each other? Like, I think it's hard to tell.
Yeah, it's really hard to tell. Fred, Gary Trent Jr., and Jakob Poeltl are free agents this summer.
Yep.
So, a lot to see.
Yeah.
It is a lot. Freddie, let's move on, I guess, and talk about the rest of the NBA here for a bit.
Sure.
How do I want to start? So do we want to recap the other playing games? How do you feel?
Sure. Yeah, let's do
This
it.
is a very free flowing episode this week.
We're vibing, you know?
Oh yeah, as we do. Let's talk about Lakers and the Timberwolves. So the Lakers won their playing game to clinch the 7th seed against the Memphis Grizzlies. Okay, this is going to be my question for you. I feel like I am surrounded by people who are big believers in the Lakers.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't get behind them. I just can't. I think, yes, they made some great trade deadline moves that improved their team significantly. No question. But when it really comes down to it, I just feel like this team is inconsistent. They're sloppy. I mean, my God, that Timberwolves game, I mean, fouling Mike Conley on that shot. I mean, just like the whole thing was ridiculous. And yes, they won the game, but it's also like when you look at how they won, I'm just like, that's not a championship team.
Yeah. I 100% agree with you. And I'll even add to that. I think people are wildly low on Memphis. They've had a lot of drama this year, obviously. But that team's stacked. They're so talented. Steven Adams is a big loss, obviously. But you know, if any other outcome than Memphis beating the crap out of LA happens, I'll be shocked.
Yeah.
To be honest. Like, I guess because of LeBron, and it is LeBron, you know, who, yeah, I've watched in LeBron's entire career. Like I'm a witness. I'm a LeBron fan. I love LeBron, and he's shocked me and amazed me so many times. So because it's him, I think in that sense, anything's possible. But yeah, like when you take it back, it's like Reeves, Rui Hachimura. It's like you start to be like, wait a second, like this Lakers team has way less talent than this Memphis team. Straight up. Like, and you want to talk about roster construction. This Lakers team is a disaster of a roster construction compared to Memphis, which is, you know, built really well. So I don't know. I mean, the Memphis, I think there's this idea that like I see Memphis as a team that has had their playoff wounds already.
Yes.
So I don't know. I don't think they're gonna hit the first round and be stunned by anything.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Like, this is a team that has paid their dues in the playoffs, and they feel poised to make a big run. I mean, yes, they have had, you know, some drama this season, but a lot of that's been off the court drama and doesn't have anything to do with, you know, how they play basketball. Well, except for Dylan Brooks, but you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, you know, I mean, this game, like this team has still been able to win despite Dylan Brooks being a little too chaotic at times. But I feel like they're poised to make a big run. And I don't know why everyone is such a biased Lakers fan. I guess it is because of LeBron and because, like, you know, we have seen him amaze us so many times. And, you know, I definitely wouldn't call it a sweep by any means. But yeah, I still believe in the Grizzlies, even though I've been very critical of them all year. I've referred to them as frat boys. But I believe in them to get out of the first round.
Yeah, you know, their first entry into the playoffs, lost in the first round. Then they lost in the second round. And I think they've just been getting better every year. But yeah, I mean, you know, I love to sort of like poke at the glamour markets. And I think that can never be lost in this conversation. If you're the Lakers, Clippers, Knicks, Nets, or the Heat, you get a lot of attention, you get a lot of love, and you get, I would say, like favorable analysis.
That's true. Do you have any thoughts about this OKC Timberwolves game?
It's going to be fun. I think it's going to be a blast. I don't know what's going. So is Gobert going to play? Like the Timberwolves?
Yeah, that's
like,
a huge
my
question
God.
mark. Yeah.
Like, and McDaniels.
Do they want him to play?
Yeah. Do they want
Do
him
they
to
even
play?
want him to play?
It's
Because
so
they
weird.
almost won without him.
Yeah. I mean, I love Mike Conley. Somebody rescue him, please. I'm happy to see the Thunder in a competitive scenario. Obviously, I love Shea. Giddey was a delight to watch the other night. It was like absolutely fantastic. I'm not all the way on the train. Like I'm also seeing a lot of sort of like Twitter energy where it's like, look, everyone was ragging on the Thunder and they turned it around. It's like, take it easy. They're in the play-in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like no one that's in the play-in gets a lot of love.
Yeah.
But hey, man, if they make it and they do some damage in the first round, then I'm willing to change my tune. But
well, it's
yeah,
good. It's good for Shea's career and for the career of young players to have this level of competitive game experience, because I'm very critical of people like a Karl Anthony Towns, but it's not his fault personally. Like just the Timberwolves as a whole team, it's like you just go so many years without playoff experience, and it's like it hurts you. And I was like kind of worried that OKC was going to be that team, but I think they're poised to make like a pretty healthy run next season, especially with Chet Holmgren being back. Fingers crossed. So yeah, I mean their tanking years are over, and that's really good for Shea and Lou Dort and that whole squad, and I'm very happy for them. On the flip side, the Pelicans, very sad, disappointing year. I mean, talk about a heartbreaking season.
Yeah.
If you're a fan base, the Pelicans, oh my God. I mean, they were the top of the Western Conference at one point earlier this year. And then the Zion injury happens, and then it's kind of downhill from there. And then they also spent a lot of money on CJ McCollum, who didn't fully come through for them last night. And, a lot of reports are suggesting that Zion is, quote, nowhere near ready to come back. And once again, his conditioning is being questioned. And that is got to be one of the toughest situations to be in.
Yeah, it's like it's sad to me because I feel like it's a storyline that happens in the NBA. It's not that often. But you do have these incredible talents who are undeniable, whether it's Greg Oden or Zion, or Brandon Roy. You have these guys that are special, and it's inarguable. They're special. They're incredible. They're amazing, but they can't stay on the court for whatever reason. And yeah, I think Zion's played something like 35% of his eligible games.
Yeah.
And he's like that. I think this was year 4 of his career. And that's not to say that he's not going to be able to like figure it out and play more games. But that's what you're as a Pelicans fan, you don't get to even like imagine your ceiling without him as a healthy star. So yeah, I mean, any Raptor fan, like they know what Zion can do. One of the most like fierce performances I've ever seen. The Raptors like got dominated in a bunch of games this year. That Pelicans game was something else.
Yeah,
Zion was just out there killing guys, and he made all the Raptors look unathletic and weak. And it was like something to behold. Like it was absolutely insane. So yeah, I mean, I really feel for Pelicans fans. Like I'm not sure what you do other than
hope and pray,
and you don't rush them. And a guy like Embiid missed a lot of time and required a lot of patience, and has sort of figured it out, like how to stay on the court and be special. So. Yeah, like I mean, you don't give up on Zion, but it's hard.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't quite this many years with Embiid, I don't think, but
yeah.
But you're right. Like, I mean, that's just kind of what you have to have your best case scenario optimism to be. But yeah, I agree. It's just heartbreaking. Like there's no real debate around it. It's sad. And we have seen his flashes of brilliance. And, I get annoyed when people just keep commenting on his weight, because this is so much more than just a weight issue. Like that really bugs me. This is so much more than that. And I don't know. I mean, I wish him the best, really. And that Pelicans team's actually really fun to watch. So, I hope they're able to kind of like keep it together to some extent.
So I was just curious. Embiid, by the way,
Mm-hmm.
first season, missed the entire season.
Yes.
Second season, missed the entire season. Third season, played 31 games.
Oh,
Fourth
okay.
season, 63 games. And this year he played 66, but the most he's ever played is 68.
Right.
So Embiid's never even had a 70-game season. But like, I think after those years, after that 31-game season, it's been at least the 51.
Like 50 something. Yeah.
Yeah, 50 something. So he's been like, a big part of the team.
Yeah.
But I mean, I hope that they figure something out with Zion, like a long-term strategy, like talk to Kawhi's people or something. You know what I mean? Like never.
Yeah,
play back,
yeah.
Do what you got. Like, and I agree. By the way, the fitness thing, he's extremely fit. Like the weight stuff's insane. So like, but I think that people's bodies break down for like such a variety of reasons. So it's shitty to hear that discourse.
Freddie, looking at the Western Conference, who do you think our Western Conference finals will be? Or who do you think will be there?
This is tight. There's a lot going on.
Everyone, full disclosure, I did not prep Freddie with any of the topics tonight. So
okay.
Shout out to you for doing a great job.
Thank you. I'm just, I'm obsessed. So I feel like the answers are loaded in there anyways. But I mean, I have like every thought I have a bunch of counters to my own opinion. But
well, it's impossible to predict. I mean, this is an NCAA bracket this year.
Yeah, so I'm sticking with. I made 3 bets. Me and 2 buddies made. We bet on the Raptors over. Ha ha ha.
A lot of people did that though.
And we also bet on the Nuggets winning the championship. So I don't necessarily think the Nuggets are going to win the championship, but I think they're going to the finals. The other team, I think. Yeah, because it's a bracket and they will play the winner of the Suns and the Clippers. I think the Nuggets will beat whoever that is. I think I'm going to go Grizzlies. And for me, the series where I just have no idea what to think is Kings G-State. Because I think G-State has all the pedigree and all the winning know-how and all that kind of stuff. But I do think that the Kings are for real. I guess, I would pick G-State. I would say, like, I guess G-State.
They just have no playoff experience.
Yeah. Like, there's going to be a
reigning champ. Like, it kind of sucks for them to actually get third in the West. And then your first round is against Golden State. Like, that's kind of unfortunate.
Fun narrative, though. Oh, sorry.
No.
A fun narrative is that Coach Mike Brown also coached
that's right.
the Warriors.
So he really knows them.
Like, he really coached them. He was really there when, he
was there last season.
Yeah, and I think was the head coach for a while when Steve Kerr had the back issue.
Right.
So, like, he knows the Warriors inside out. Yeah, should be fun.
I think that I'm a believer in the Suns.
Very fair. Yeah.
I just,
the Suns are awesome.
It is one of those crazy anomalies that there really isn't any major like historical precedence for, but also they haven't lost a single game with Kevin Durant. And
is that true? They haven't lost one.
I'm pretty confident they haven't lost a single game with Kevin Durant. There haven't been that many games though.
That's still.
But I
wild.
don't think they've lost with Kevin Durant yet. Please, if I'm wrong about that, you can correct me, because we are very off the cuff right now. But yeah, I don't think they've lost a game with Kevin Durant, and I'm not a huge believer in their like deep into the bench. But when you are in a playoff scenario and you're playing your top 7, your top 8, you know, they might lose some minutes when certain players have to rest. But I don't know, man. When that team's on, they're on, and they're hungry, and they know it's now or never. Like they know they got to do it now. And I don't know. I think they could do it. I think they could go very far, if not all the way. I am a biased believer in the Warriors. I don't think they're going to win a championship this year. I think they were too sloppy for most of the season, and the lack of road wins is very concerning when you don't even have home court advantage.
Yeah.
But I think, if they face off against each other in the second round, that's going to be wildly entertaining. And
who the
Memphis,
I think
it would be
Grizzlies.
Yeah, it would be Warriors Grizzlies in the second round. And I'm already assuming the Lakers are going to lose.
Yeah.
I actually think Phoenix could be either one of those teams. If it's Phoenix, if that's how the bracket works, because they would go against Denver in the second round.
Yeah. So in your thing, you have Phoenix beating the Grizzlies. I should say, I think it's there. None of these teams won 60 games, right? So
none.
It's gonna be a matchup game, and I think any of these teams can lose.
I was a big believer in the Nuggets for so long, and then just in the last 2 weeks, I was like, I don't know. But yeah. I was a huge believer in the Nuggets.
I mean, I don't want to switch to the East or anything, but like to me, the Celtics and the Grizzlies are like the most complete teams in the NBA, like by a significant margin. Like, like in the West, I feel like it's really going to be like who's healthy. What's the deal? Like, does Chris Paul's hamstring hold up? Like, whatever. Like, all that kind of shit's good. Like, is Jamal Murray? Does he have bounce? Is he like killing it? I think that is really, really going to factor into who wins the West. The East, I think, is a little more, not a little more. It's a lot more like top heavy, where it's sort of like
the East is more top heavy. You're saying?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, we can move on to the Eastern Conference. Let's be real. Bucks, Celtics, 76ers, and then everyone else is for show.
Okay, can I say that I believe in the Cavs to do something? I think
to go to the second round. Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So who would they? They would be up against the Cavs. Yeah, then they go up against the Bucks. Yeah, I don't think the Cavs could beat the Bucks, but I think Donovan Mitchell's special. Like
I will say this: the Knicks Cavs series is going to be the only first round Eastern Conference playoff series even worth your time. Okay. No other Eastern Conference first round series will be entertaining.
My only counter to that, and this is more like hijinks fun territory, is I think that the Nets Sixers is going to be hilarious. Like, is Ben Simmons going to be there? Like, what's going on with that?
Right.
And then Harden,
he won't be there.
Yeah, will he just not show? Like,
I don't think he's going to show up. I don't think he's going to travel with the team.
Like, that's a lot. And I also think the Sixers, unlike the Celtics or the Bucks, like the Sixers have this, like Harden, you want to talk about pressure. Harden has this pressure to like finally break through. Embiid's never make the conference finals, right? So like the Sixers have this internal pressure where they could defeat themselves against anyone.
Right.
Mind you, they're way better than they've ever been, I think.
I'm just looking at the bracket now. Does that mean Milwaukee? No. I'm just trying to think. So it's Milwaukee and then Miami or Chicago. Then they
Yeah.
would face Cleveland. And then for Boston, they would face Philly or Brooklyn.
That's right.
So we still get a Milwaukee, Boston, Eastern Conference final.
Finals, which is just
that's going to devastate the 76ers, actually. Like, if that happens, that's going to devastate them. Talk about multiple Eastern Conference teams that are unhappy. That will devastate that team.
And the Sixers, like, how many times has Embiid lost to the Celtics? Like, this is going way back earlier in the pod, but like sort of this like matching up like big versus big. Bigs generally don't match up well against Embiid. You have to like use speed and space against him. Like Horford has done very well against Embiid. And guys like Tice have been good against Embiid. Like the Celtics I
have no memory of Tice being good against Embiid, but I will take your word for it.
Sorry, it's not.
I will take your word for it.
It's not an individual. Sorry, it's absolutely not. It's Tice. Listen, before I get roasted, but I mean, it's not like an individual thing. They just like the Celtics. They move the ball and they space you out, and I think they'll do that against the Sixers again. Like, I do not think the Sixers can beat the Celtics. Like, I absolutely don't think they have. They just don't have it.
I mean, what is going to happen to the 76ers is a future First Take week-long debate. Like, the show ESPN First Take week-long debate that they're already prepping for. Like, no doubt. Like,
yeah.
I mean, sure, they'll fire Doc Rivers, but then what?
Well, I think isn't there the Harden rumors, right? That he wants to go back to Houston. So Harden's going to be like, me and Nurse back at it. Nurse never coached Harden, but
no, but he did coach their G League team.
Yeah, he won the Vipers. They won 2 titles.
Yeah, so he does have that history with them. And then maybe Nick Nurse wants to be with a younger team so he can prove that he can develop players. Or just run these young guys into the ground, one or the other. Probably the latter.
He wants to get Wemby and play him 47 minutes a game.
Just completely destroy him. Okay, Freddie, in the East, are you picking Milwaukee like everyone else?
I think I am. I think I am picking the Bucks like everyone else.
I think we could have a Suns-Bucks rematch, except now there's Kevin Durant in there.
Oh wow, that would be.
And to think that Milwaukee, won that championship because that toe was on the line, right?
Yeah.
And then that is what an incredible narrative that would be for Kevin Durant if he got to have that, and for the Suns to have that as well. I think we could have a Suns-Bucks rematch.
That would be insane. And then also like if the Bucks win again, what's
that would be even crazier.
Does Giannis go order like 100-piece instead of a 50-piece Nuggets?
Yeah, you have to. Yeah.
And then I mean, there's a lot of legacy shit on the line this playoffs. It's going to be really, really juicy. Mm-hmm. Also, I've said it before, but I think the playoff series that if the Celtics beat the Sixers, like it won't happen, that we've all been robbed of is Sixers-Bucks. It just hasn't happened. It's never lined up.
That's right.
And I want to see Embiid and Giannis go at it so bad. I would love that. But it's just never lined up. Hasn't happened. And I actually think the Sixers would match up great against the Bucks. Like better than they would against the Celtics.
Right. Yeah, I'm already assuming the future, but that it would be a tough break for the 76ers. Considering Joel seems to be squeaking out as a MVP favorite now. Just
he looks like he's gonna win
at the right time. Yeah. So, which I'm fine with, actually. Like, I think when we look back at this era of basketball and Giannis, Jokic, and Embiid are MVPs, I think we're all going to feel good about that.
Yeah, I mean,
like I really do.
I'm pretty high on Giannis. Like, I think that either of the Jokic years, I feel like there's sort of some voter fatigue. Like he won 2 years in a row, then Jokic won 2 years in a row.
There was voter fatigue
now
there
Embiid's
for
gonna
sure.
win.
And if either of them are going to get a third MVP, it should be Giannis.
Yeah, like I think like Giannis has been like the third or runner up like in those 2 years, and then this year is right in the conversation. You know, his team yet again
Yeah.
finishes with the best record in the NBA, and even this year too. It's like Middleton missed almost like the half of the year. I don't know. I don't know why Giannis's MVP talk is so quiet, to be honest, but.
Milwaukee should do more for him. Remember when we wanted Fred VanVleet to be an all-star and it was like Matt Devlin, Freddie all-star. Like you couldn't not hear it, you know? Scotty Roy for rookie of the year. Like he wouldn't shut up about it. Like we campaign hard. We're Jamie Lee Curtis.
Oh, I love it.
Okay, we campaign hard for our Oscar.
I heard more Tatum for MVP talk than I heard Giannis for MVP. And like Tatum is a brilliant top 10 player, but he's not on Giannis's level.
No, I agree. I think they just don't campaign enough. Honestly, he's probably just too modest about it. And I also think too, it's like it's something he's already accomplished 2 times over. And I think he's just focused on winning, which is like fine and great. Yeah. So you think it's going to be the Nuggets and the Bucks?
Yeah, I think Nuggets win.
I love that as a nerdy NBA mind matchup to see Giannis and Jokic go head to head like in a finals. Like that, as a nerd, I love. I don't think the NBA loves that from a marketing perspective, but as an NBA nerd, like I'm there with you. But I think I don't know. I think there's something juicy about my Suns Bucks rematch.
Oh, Suns Bucks would be great. Like I just because then we'll have to revisit like the Chris Paul push on Giannis, which I always just imagine like if that was reversed, like if oh god, if Giannis pushed Chris Paul, he would have like broken all of his bones.
And if he didn't, he would have sold it that way.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, he also knows how to campaign.
Yeah.
Freddie, I think this brings us to our Raptors hottie highlight of the week. And honestly, it is going to go to DeRozan, okay? Because she owns us. She owns us.
It's the new LeBronto.
She is the new what's his name? Larry Tenenbaum?
Yeah.
Who owns us? She's the new Tenenbaum. She bought the team. It is what it is. She just owns us.
I'm honestly proud of her. She showed up and she killed it.
I'm really proud of her too, actually. It reminded me of when I was a kid because I remember like going to a Raptors game when I was, this ages me, but whatever. Like when I was really young and seeing Vince Carter, and like when Vince was at the free throw line, I would scream at him. And people around me would get mad because they're like, he's on our team. Why are you screaming at him? And I'm like, I need him to know that I'm here. Like, that's why I'm screaming at him. I need him to know that I am present.
And I'm sure he did.
And maybe he did. I mean, I was in the 300s, but I was a child and I didn't know any better. And I loved him. And he needed to know, he needed to be aware of my presence.
Yeah. No, that's a day Vince will never forget.
Yeah, you know, so I get it. And then she's like DeMar DeRozan's daughter, so she has like a million better excuses than I ever did. But
yeah, she got to sit really close too. And
she got to sit really close, and it really counted. But the energy, I've had that energy before as a young girl, as a fan of basketball. So she owns us and she wins it. Okay, Freddie, thank you so much for joining me. This is like so late at night that we're doing this. Thank you to everyone for tuning in this week. Just so you know, I will continue doing episodes throughout the playoffs, so stay tuned for that. If there's any Raptors developments, I will absolutely comment on them. I'm not going to do anything too like prediction-y, but I will do more like reaction-based stuff and continue to follow the NBA. So if you are following the rest of the NBA playoffs, please follow them with me and with Freddie as well on Confederacy of Dunks. So thank you again for tuning in. Freddie, where can people find you if they haven't already on the internets?
Yeah, our podcast, with the Sonar Network, the Pick Up a WNBA podcast. The WNBA is going to be just wildly entertaining this year, and it's kicking off in I think just under a month. So it's going to be good. And yeah, Confederacy of Dunks is my podcast on Raptors Republic, and you can find me on Twitter or Insta. And yeah, thanks.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Peace.